Hello, and welcome back to Fallout 76. I am Wiggle, and this is a test of the legendary perk Flung Fireworks. Oh, I'm impressed that I got that out. This perk gives you a 20% chance to have enemies explode when you kill them with a ranged weapon, which can be useful. They explode, and if you're in a cluster of enemies, it can do damage and sometimes kill the other enemies. At least that's been my experience. I have this perk on my RNG character, where it was a randomly selected perk. It's not one that I would choose for myself, but it's only rank 1 on that character. And so I thought what I would do is give it a more complete test with a character that could max it out. So this is I'm doing this as a rifleman. I'm doing this test also on a custom world. The main reason for that is I don't want to use my perk coins to max out a perk that I'm just testing. And also I needed to craft a rifle to use for the test, since this is normally a commando build and I wanted to test as a rifleman. That does seem to be the best use case, a rifleman against a cluster of enemies, since a rifleman is going to have the most challenge. A slow firing weapon will have the most challenge with a group. A commando wouldn't so much, so it seems like a rifleman would benefit from this perk the most. And so yeah, I'd like to give this perk a test and see if it's even worth considering using in your build. So I just need to find a cluster of enemies somewhere, or 2 clusters or 3, whatever it takes, and let's see what we see. Yeah, another note about the custom world is that it's just like an adventure server, but I have it set for free crafting and free fast travel. Other than that, it's exactly the same as your regular adventure server. Now, something I am curious about is if this perk triggers, like that one did, it did cause an enemy to explode. If those explosions will aggro friendlies. Okay, this is a indestructible bloatfly, so that's super awesome. Wow. There we go. So now I'm still in caution. Yep. So, and I noticed that in my RNG playthrough as well, that one time it did that. It triggered, I think it was just a random settler. I shot an enemy right next to the settler. The enemy exploded, and the settler was hostile towards me. See, that one's not, but this one is. So, but these enemies don't seem to be, since they were out of range.
Today's security status.
So it was just that one. Interesting. Well, I guess that's one thing that's good. It didn't make the whole. Never mind. There was just a little bit of lag. So yes, it seems to have aggroed all of White Spring against me, just by having that one bug explode. So yeah, I would not call that an ideal thing, honestly. Unless that's what you're going for. If you want to go into White Spring and fight everything, then there you go. I mean, you can do that anyway, but now I can VATS them because they're not hostile. You know, because by default they're not hostile, so you have to manually shoot them. So for us VATS users, that's a good thing. But if you just want to come here, do some shopping, and you're not looking to fight all the enemies, and then you decide, oh, I'll help out these robots by shooting something. You get an explosion, and next thing you know, you're fighting everything. So I would call that less than ideal, personally. Yeah, I'm not crazy about that. So why don't we go find some clusters of enemies elsewhere and test it some more? All right, here's Freddys House of Scares. Usually there's a bunch of super mutants, a bunch of ghouls close together, so that if we can get this perk to trigger. There we go. So that took a tiny bit of health from the Wendigo, and no health from that ghoul. Okay, that looks like about half health from that one. Oh, another trigger, and it killed. So that Wendigo has a little bit of health missing, but what is that, maybe 20%? So in this case, it seemed to be fairly useful. I mean, it did take a bit of damage. or a bit of health from the other enemy, so they're a rat. But at the same time, these aren't really tough enemies anyway, so it's not like you really need the help typically, with a bunch of ghouls. And it's not even that many ghouls. But yeah, that was actually, what, it triggered 3 times? 2 times? So, which is pretty good for something that's only 20%. So, in that case, it was okay. I mean, it was help you probably don't need, but it was still help nonetheless. Here we are at Camden Park, and there's usually clusters of Scorched right there. Wow, okay, so that... How many did that kill? I'll have to... So that's a pretty wide radius. I mean, I killed it here, and damage... There was damage numbers all the way over here. So, yeah. So what did I do? 3 shots and killed half a dozen Scorched? That's pretty good. Now, there's only 3 over here usually. See, and then that did nothing. Right? They were right next to each other. And that one exploding didn't do anything. And that's kind of the same thing I've been finding on the RNG playthrough. Is sometimes it does damage to other enemies, and sometimes it doesn't seem to do anything. Which, it only has a 20% chance to even explode. So if you have a 20% chance to explode, and see, and that time it did damage. It looks like it killed the other enemy, yeah. So if you only have a 20% chance to explode, and it's not even going to do damage to the other enemies all the time. So far. Yeah, this probably isn't a really good area to test anyway. What I've been able to tell is this perk, when it does explode, it's like a frag grenade, which means it's not going to go through walls. So it's only going to be good in open areas. So it's something like that where they have walls and stuff separating the enemies. It's probably not an ideal spot for it. So let's move on, and I will find another location with a cluster of enemies. All right. Well, I'm back at Huntersville since my last time there was crashed by a bunch of vertibots. So I reloaded the world. Yeah, see, and if you have 2 enemies like that and it triggers on the second one, then that's not terribly useful. Yeah, so whenever it doesn't... I mean, I guess that's one of the things I don't like about this perk, is whenever it doesn't trigger, it's like having no perk at all. Whereas if you have something like follow through, it's always, you shoot an enemy and it's in effect, not counting for server lag and stuff like that. But yeah, so far this perk, it's only triggered when, holy shit, they're talking a lot, when no other enemies have been close enough to get hit by it. See, that guy's by himself, so even if I kill him and he explodes, which he didn't, but if he would be too far away to actually do me any good. He exploded, but it didn't go through the floor, so that hound took no damage, and that guy up there who was right next to him took no damage. And then he explodes, and there's no other enemies around, so it doesn't matter. So, I don't know. I mean, the more I use this perk, the less useful it really seems to be. I mean, it's already got a fairly limited use case, because it's, really only good with clusters of enemies, not single enemies. I mean, even 2 enemies, it's not that useful. Because it has to... I mean, like right there is a perfect example. If it happens on the second one, it's useless. It doesn't do any good to you at all. And obviously for entertainment value, seeing the explosion is fun, but in terms of usefulness, it's not. So yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what else I can test on this that would make this seem like a super useful perk, honestly. I mean, it aggroes, it has a chance to aggro friendlies. So then all of a sudden you end up with way more enemies than you anticipated, which, you know, if that's what you want, that's great. But that's not something I'm usually looking for. And it doesn't seem to go through walls. So there's another limiting factor, is it's just outdoor locations. Yeah, so overall, I'd say you know, entertainment value, this has entertainment value, but usefulness, I'm just not seeing it. You know, maybe there's something I'm missing. But yeah, my conclusion on this perk is that it's just not, there's just better options. So yeah, I don't think there's anything else to test on this. So yeah, if you've enjoyed this test, leave a like, comment, subscribe. I'd also like to know what your thoughts are. Anybody out there that's actually used this perk, what they think of it. And I hope you'll join me in the next one. Thank you very much.